Following a controversial moment in a recent WNBA matchup, public attention has once again turned toward Brittney Griner, a prominent figure in women's basketball who has faced both athletic and personal scrutiny throughout her career. The incident involved a physical altercation with rising star CaitlinClark, where footage appears to show Griner making a deliberate and aggressive move, followed by a controversial verbal exchange. While initial reactions centered around the nature of the contact and the inflammatory language used, what followed was an unexpected wave of medical and scientific scrutiny that brought a new level of attention to Griner's background and athletic eligibility. Analysts, commentators, and even medical professionals began revisiting past footage and online content, noting physical traits and historical injury patterns that some believe warrant further investigation into her status as a competitor in women's sports. The discussion expanded beyond sportsmanship or league discipline and entered into the realms of sports medicine, psychology, and ethics in competition. Footage from a social media post, reportedly taken years ago, became a focal point. Experts from various fields, including sports medicine and endocrinology, began analyzing physical and biological markers, suggesting that certain characteristics displayed did not align with typical female physiology, even among elite athletes. Shoulder width, skeletal structure, and muscle mass were all reviewed, with comparisons made to normative data for both male and female athletes. Some AI systems used by platforms that police for nudity, for instance, reportedly failed to classify older content involving Griner as female, which analysts argued might reflect a technical categorization based on physical characteristics. This triggered additional evaluations from professionals who claim that the patterns observed raise legitimate eligibility concerns. These concerns are not rooted in speculation, but in calls for greater transparency and verification in professional women's athletics, particularly as competitive integrity is a cornerstone of any sport. Critics of the WNBA's silence have pointed to what they perceive as inconsistencies in how the league addresses eligibility verification, especially in cases where biological advantage might influence performance and fairness. Sports medicine professionals have added weight to these claims by pointing to injury recovery rates, contact tolerance, and muscular development patterns observed throughout Griner's career. They argue that these physiological factors, when examined collectively, could represent more than just natural athleticism. They may indicate competitive advantages beyond the scope of standard training or genetics within the female athletic population. Legal analysts have also weighed in, stating that if it were ever determined that an athlete competed under misrepresented conditions, the ramifications could include legal review of prior awards, team standings, and player contracts. More significantly, they argue that if physical differences were used in ways that resulted in harm to other competitors, such as the altercation with CaitlinClark, then the situation could escalate into broader legal territory involving physical assault or unfair competition. The WNBA's current system for confirming athlete eligibility has now come under fresh scrutiny. Some have raised questions about the documentation processes and the lack of transparent, standardized testing across the board. Independent medical experts have pushed for comprehensive evaluations that would include hormone assessments, chromosomal studies, and biomechanical analysis as a way to ensure that eligibility criteria are applied fairly and consistently for all athletes. The debate also touches on psychological factors, with professionals suggesting that repeated behavioral patterns, such as physical aggression or a combative stance against criticism, could stem from deeper issues related to identity, pressure, or unresolved internal conflict. These insights further support calls for a broader mental health review of athlete conduct in the league. In the wake of these developments, there is growing concern among other WNBA players about the culture being fostered within the league. Some are reportedly uneasy about the lack of response or protection following the incident with Clark. The possibility that biological differences could be contributing to on-court aggression only intensifies those fears. At the same time, Griner's situation is causing ripples outside the league. Endorsement deals and sponsorship agreements are now under the microscope as brands that have publicly supported her face questions about whether they knowingly backed an athlete whose eligibility might come into question. This is especially pressing in a commercial landscape where authenticity, fairness, and brand ethics play increasingly pivotal roles in public perception. International implications also loom large, particularly in light of Griner's previous legal issues overseas. Should further investigation reveal inconsistencies in her eligibility status while competing on behalf of national teams, questions could emerge around international sporting regulations, diplomatic protocols, and the vetting of U.S. athletes in global competitions. Experts stress that their positions are grounded not in ideology or discrimination, but in scientific inquiry and the defense of fair play. They argue that ignoring obvious discrepancies in physical characteristics undercuts the very foundation of competitive women's sports, where biological baselines have long been considered necessary to create a level playing field. Advocates for transparency are quick to point out that this situation, if handled poorly, could set damaging precedents. Without proper systems to verify eligibility, women's leagues may be exposed to future disputes that erode public trust and hinder the progress made by female athletes over generations. This is why some are calling for the standardization of testing protocols, not just in the WNBA, but across all women's athletic organizations. Meanwhile, the psychological impact on CaitlinClark and her peers cannot be overlooked. Competing in an environment where physical safety and equality are perceived to be at risk can cause long-term stress, performance anxiety, and mental health challenges. Mental health professionals caution that if athletes do not feel secure in their leagues, the broader effect on team dynamics, morale, and recruitment will be significant. Financially, Griner could face losses if partnerships pull out or if the public narrative affects her ability to attract future deals. Reputational damage is also a key concern, as athletes operate not only as players but as public figures and representatives of their sport. If scrutiny leads to formal findings that question her eligibility, every accomplishment, record, and accolade could be reevaluated, not only altering her personal legacy, but also reshaping the historical record of women's basketball. Sports organizations, meanwhile, will be forced to reckon with their current verification and vetting systems. A case like this could drive massive overhauls in eligibility testing, pushing leagues toward new benchmarks of transparency and fairness. Whether through advanced AI assessments, biological testing, or third-party certification, the push for comprehensive checks is only gaining momentum. As the controversy unfolds, pressure continues to mount on the WNBA to provide clarity, accountability, and leadership. The public, along with medical and ethical professionals, are demanding answers that the league has so far declined to offer. Every day that goes by without a clear statement or investigation only fuels speculation and undermines confidence in the system. The implications are enormous, not only for Griner, but for the future of professional women's sports. The issue is no longer confined to one player or one game. It has grown into a debate about fairness, transparency, and the fundamental values that define athletic competition. If proven valid, the current concerns could reshape how eligibility is handled, set new standards across sports, and forever change the dialogue around competitive integrity in women's athletics. The situation continues to evolve, and as more professionals from various fields contribute their insights, the demand for official action becomes harder to ignore. Griner's current state of anxiety reflects the mounting scrutiny and potential fallout that could follow if decisive action is not taken. At the heart of the matter is a simple but powerful truth. Fairness matters, and in sport, it must be protected by facts, science, and responsible leadership. Every institution that relies on athletic performance and competition is watching this case unfold because it sets a tone for how such matters will be handled in the future. If leagues fail to adopt objective and uniform standards, they risk losing credibility not only with athletes but with fans, sponsors, and global partners. With more advanced technology available today, from hormone tracking to skeletal structure modeling, The tools exist to implement testing that is both ethical and scientifically rigorous. This isn't about exclusion or discrimination. It's about honoring the principles of fair play. Female athletes deserve assurance that their opportunities are protected, that records and championships are won through honest competition, and that the systems meant to guard their rights are actually doing so. What began as a post-game controversy has now snowballed into a multifaceted investigation that crosses into medical, legal, financial, and ethical territory. Brittney Griner is now at the center of one of the most significant eligibility debates in modern sports history, and the outcomes of this case may reverberate for years across leagues, disciplines, and institutions. As calls for transparency grow louder, the WNBA and its governing bodies face a pivotal moment. They can choose to lead with integrity and openness, or risk being remembered as complicit in one of the biggest sports integrity crises of the era. The eyes of the world are now watching, and as more evidence is examined and more experts speak out, only one outcome remains acceptable: a full and honest accounting of the truth.